Hey, Gretchen.
Hi, Keela. How are you?
I am better.
Yes.
I'm better.
Goodness.
Yeah,
You had
I'm
quite the crazy adventure on Friday, didn't you?
I did.
Oh,
I did. Can we say that food poisoning is nothing nice? I actually ate my
mm,
first meal last night. Had a
oh.
little bit of it.
Can you
Yeah.
identify what it was that you ate? I mean, is it?
I think it's my grapes. I like cream cheese and grapes and this my white chicken breast. I put it all together. You slice up the red grapes and you put it all
Oh,
together and make a you put it on whatever you want. You can put it on lettuce, you can put it on,
right.
whatever healthy bread but I believe it was my grapes. I'm not quite sure, but I won't eat any of the three combos again. That
Oh,
No.
man.
But I'm better. And I think I overdosed on Zofran, which turned around and had the opposite effect.
Oh my gosh.
But
Well,
I
I
know,
know,
but
I
it's
know
okay.
how that goes. I mean, I think we've all been there where it's like
Yeah.
you eat something. I remember a certain 4th of July where I had some pretty terrible. I showed up late and I had the potato salad, not a good idea. Summer and potato salad outside, not a good idea. So,
Ugh, no.
um, yeah,
But
I'm glad
uh,
you're feeling better. That you're
thank you. Yes.
on the
Um,
road.
I'm on the road to recovery. Got a lot of electrolytes. I kept down a lot of electrolytes and everything. So yeah, and I started feeling better. I'm still having
Yeah.
hot flashes, so I have like got all the air on, and it's so humid today though. But
Yeah.
okay, so I think I want to introduce our guest.
Definitely.
So I know that everybody knows Mr. Serge Del Mar. We are very grateful that he decided and made the decision to come on here and accepted our invitation. Serge has been speaking out for the kids since I've known him on YouTube, and he's just an amazing, beautiful human being. And I am going to bring him to the stage.
Great.
Hi, Serge.
Hi, Serge.
Hello.
How are
Hi,
you?
everyone. I'm great. I'm great, actually.
I love that
Good.
smile, Serge. You have a
I
great
know
smile.
he makes everyone smile. Yeah. I am going to ask, how is Michael?
He's doing great, actually. Actually,
Great.
you guys should be interviewing him because he's been going on a mental health journey for himself ever since that horrible night of that, fake
Yes.
arrest.
Ugh,
Um,
That was,
so
terrible.
can't tell him, Serge, if you don't mind, please. You got my contact information. So
yeah,
please, we'll
I'll
have him
connect
on
you guys.
anytime.
Yeah, of
Anytime.
course. Of course.
Yeah.
He would be great to come on. Yes. But so the reason that we wanted you to come on today is you've been speaking out. And I remember when you first started speaking out, well, that I knew of you, when you started speaking out for the kids in
Mhm.
Scientology. And
Yeah.
I just kept saying, keep going, Serge. Someone's going to hear you. Keep going, Serge. Someone's going to hear you. And I would see days you were so defeated or you looked defeated. And I'm like, keep going, Serge. People are listening. And just every time, and that is why I told you that I was listening. You made me listen. You made a lot of people listen. And now I think a lot of people are paying attention. And I knew that it would come the day that you would be heard. And I'm so thankful you never stopped. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you guys for listening. It's like that's what this has been a game changer for us to have our voices heard and validated and really stripping off all these vias that have really, prevented us from coming on the record and stating the facts and raising awareness for what we need to advocate against and what we have the capacity to stop.
Right. You're exactly right. I mean, you have to be the voice for those that don't have a choice. That's what I always say. Like when I'm my mental health job, I advocate for those who can't speak for themselves. And
Yeah,
it's
and
just
it's, I
like on
mean,
a grander scale for you.
well, it's just our journey of surviving this experience as children collectively. And, I've been on this road for nearly a decade since I fully cut ties with my parents, with every single person that had anything to do with this subject. And it has taken a lot of time to unravel. It has taken a lot of, comprehensive mental health care to actually decompartmentalize so many heavy aspects of the trauma that was inflicted. And, I always say we were left on the road as roadkill, but going back to mental health mattering is how we put ourselves together after that happened. And even that's a miracle, because we know how compromised our upbringing made us to not be able to even experience the mental health. A lot of the times, we were told in the hotel that we were getting therapy the whole time. And that's something I really push back on, that level of misinformation, right? I've gone to a therapist. It has nothing to do with what they did to us in the hotels. So much of that sanitizing language has been used to camouflage what actually is that gets done, and going to that hashtag that all of you have heard me say ad nauseum, kids cannot consent. It just doesn't get more simple than that. Like, that's what we can advocate for, without getting caught up in all of these, I have this opinion, I have that opinion, but you know what? This is just calls for a moment where adults go, for this, children cannot be a part of that. Resolve whatever you want to do as an adult for yourself, figure it out for yourselves. But this is an activity that children cannot in any way, shape, or form be exposed to, given the extremist situations that go on in these audits, these so-called audits. It couldn't be more appalling for me as a child survivor of this, to have been groomed, to have been used as a vehicle to groom others, to have been put in the middle of all that chaos and that dysfunction that, now I understand through therapy, I never had any shred of power to be involved in any of this. I don't consider myself ever having been a Scientologist. I never adopted this BS as an adult. So I really do feel that, that is the biggest differentiator between us and our parents, us and anyone that was 21 and up and decided to take the plunge on being invited to become L. Ron Hubbard, which is really the tragedy at the end of the day. L. Ron Hubbard is a convicted felon. The press doesn't ever speak about that. For some reason, it always gets washed off like, oh, that didn't happen. Never mind that the United States of America didn't convict them. Never mind it happened in France, but he was on the run with Shelley Miscavige, 12-year-old Shelley Miscavige, stuck on a ship. So the origins of L. Ron Hubbard wanting to have full access to kids is since its very inception. And all the sycophants get, warped into his mind, warped into his viewpoint and attitude, and the erasure of common sense boundaries between children and adults in commercial buildings, in ships, in hotels is something that wouldn't pass the smell test anywhere in the world. It's that simple.
No, because you're adults in little bodies, correct? That's what you're taught to believe.
And that's how they erode that common sense boundary, right?
Yes.
To reframe childhood. And again, it's like, and I know that I go very, very hard on the adults because they do have to be confronted with the truth. Truth hurts. It hurts. Like, this is not something that anybody wants to wake up and realize. And I can understand how all of the adults are parents that have left. Not only do they have to feel and deal with the betrayal blindness that they developed as a result of being ensnared in that culture, right? Because it's a culture. It's made up of so many people. And that's what has strengthened that level of cognitive dissonance, because then they're just, they become sheeple. Really, at the end of the day, they're just following blindly what everyone else is doing. And it's like keeping up with the Joneses on steroids. And that normalizes the very, very dangerous things that, I don't know if they all signed up to be able to abuse kids with impunity and get away with it. I don't know if that was what made them be a part of it. But that's what happens as a result of being ensnared. And that's why the alarm is being sounded code red at this moment, because
Yeah.
we cannot have some commercial building, hotel, or, floating ship somewhere
Whatever you want to
that
call it, it's all the same.
has
Yeah.
this. It just cannot exist. And we need to all together, as concerned adults and citizens, raise the alarm, because everyone can believe whatever they want. Yes, religious freedom and all of that. Believe whatever you want. You cannot go to an adult and tell the adult, stop believing that. We are all adults. We're all allowed to believe whatever. And those beliefs cannot then become actions in the physical universe that are whatever in furtherance of those beliefs, if those beliefs happen to also fall into criminal activity, which is
Correct.
how that cognitive dissonance is just so dangerous, because the beliefs that the convicted felon pitched, L. Ron Hubbard, end up being followed by all these people blindly. And we've heard this ad nauseum, right? We were groomed to be like, what would L. Ron Hubbard do? What would L. Ron Hubbard say? So, that's being questioned. In the year 2024, I understand that we've gone through a whole evolution, and maybe a decade ago, we were still not so aware, painfully aware of what really did take place when you strip down all the glossy, sanitized, whitewashing language to come to where, Denmark just called it what it is, slavery,
Yes.
modern day slavery,
Yes, they
and
did.
adults cannot participate in it. Children cannot participate in it. Consenting adults can. There is no world, if an adult wants to sign up to be a slave, to be someone's slave, and they make a contract and they make agreements, and all consenting parties are in agreement, that can happen. No one can come and save that person. If they are in agreement with being treated like that, that can happen. So the case is being made for the kids who never had the capacity to do that. And then I also make the case for, it should be informed consent. So if they really want to be that slave, that's one thing. If they're being scammed into being told, oh, you're not going to be a slave, you're going to save our world, and then they are being a slave, then I would say that's not informed consent either. And that also has to be understood and looked at, because, we have all these horrific trauma stories that repeat ad nauseum, because everything is, following blindly the words and the scripture and the writings of a convicted felon that, just had no good ideas for himself. He was just a disgusting, degraded person.
Serge, I'm sorry, Gretchen, go ahead.
No. I don't want to interrupt Serge. And I think obviously, Serge, you have a
Yeah.
really important message here. And I don't want to interrupt too much, but I want to hear what you have to say. But
Sure.
on the issue of informed consent, so I'm a psychologist in the state of California.
Mm.
I'm a mandated reporter. Okay. I work primarily with adults right now, but I have worked with kids and families.
Mm.
And what we learn is that it's interesting with the idea of consent, right? Because anyone under the age of 18 they can give what they call assent, right? They can sign and say, okay, I understand. But ultimately, the ultimate source for giving informed consent for their child's treatment is the parent or the guardian.
Mm.
And so, unless the caveat here is, unless now there's some regulations of, I think if their parents don't agree with therapy and they want to go into therapy, I think it's like between 12 and 14 years of age, there's some caveat there. There's some kind of exception. Or if they're an emancipated minor.
Mm.
So those are the rules I go by in terms of when and therapy arguably is not something I've had it where divorced parents, right? I have to, one of the parents comes in, brings a child in, and they say, yes, I'm on board with my child getting treatment. And I have to at least inform the other parent because of custody and whatever.
Mhm.
But going back to the consent and consent issue, and this is my ignorance, Serge. Arguably, it's when I understand that the mindset here is that they're not really minors, they're not really kids, because we talked to Liz Gale and she goes, when she went to child development education, her education, the idea of age
Yeah.
appropriate was something that was completely like, there is no such thing as age appropriate in Scientology. So what is I mean, are you aware of like how parents give up their rights to Scientology? Is it, do they not abide by those? Do they not get caught? I mean, do the parents just sign over and say, like in terms of who consents for certain like courses, or, you have to be, I would imagine, right? Is there not any of that? Is there not any where there has to be some formal documentation? I mean, we talk about the billion-year contract, right? There is some documentation that Scientology follows. But where are the parents here that say, like, what are they doing? Are they signing over rights and saying Scientology is a custodian of my kid? I'm not clear on that part.
Well, that happened with me when I got signed up to the Sea Org as a minor, right? There
Okay.
was some sort of paper that my parents signed. Never mind that I was, number one, not in the US. Like I wasn't a US citizen, and I was being like brought into that
Mm.
to be part of that hotel. They organized these like visas where they trained me to lie at the immigration office, to be like, because I remember when I went to the immigration, my mom came with me. And that's another very difficult thing to understand as well, Gretchen. Child trafficking happened when your parent brought you to the child trafficking operation. Is so hard to unravel for yourself as a child, right? Because you're innately thinking your parents love you. They did
So
do
to
very
protect you,
horrible
right?
they did do very horrible, sadistic things in furtherance of what L. Ron Hubbard pitched, right? Was my mother's idea to lock me up for 3 days writing so-called overts and withholds because I was playing with a Barbie doll. I mean, that's sadistic abuse. Like, there's
Mm.
no world in which a child benefits from being locked up 3 days inside a room when they can barely read and write. I mean, it's intellectual abuse. It's every type of possible abuse, right? But it's like, it's all glossed up doing it like, oh, I'm getting their ethics in. I'm helping you, you know? I would argue, when my parents weren't following the rhetoric of L. Ron Hubbard, you would see glimmers of their own personality, as all Scientologists have, right? Like, yes, they're all ensnared in this, but I will give them the fact that everyone has their own humanity. And I don't know that their own humanity was to do what happened here. So, the problem with this is your parent is in on it. Your parent grooms you, including with the language, right? Because as a child, you start already learning all these words that replace reality. We're not having an upset, we're having an ARC break. You're going to get an ethics handling, and then by the time you get to the hotel, everything that you've been told by your parents is materialized with all of these people and with all the fake hoo-ha, right? There's so much fake. The world's great. Everything's great. A success story. Everything inside the hotel runs on a propaganda 24/7. Wins, greatness, wonderful. So that's all that's really being published internal. So the adults become this, complete, just, the compromising of the critical thinking skills is so severe. The cognitive dissonance, the narcissistic influence that they get, because they start really deluding themselves. I'm so much better. I'm so much higher. And it's all these delusions of grandeur, dangerous delusions of grandeur, that ends up with them, entitling themselves to think that a child is not a child. That's a level of entitlement that is giving degenerate. Like, that's common sense. Like, on the flip side of this, I can just see it clear as water, right? It's like, I shouldn't have to be convincing all of the adults that participated in this that we were actual children. At the time, we weren't, because we were told we were adults. But on the flip side, we are all setting the record straight, number one. And going again to what matters today is that everything that happened to me, to Nora, to Reese, to Jenna, to it's being done to other kids. It didn't even remotely stop. It didn't even remotely get reined back. because again, the abuse is L. Ron Hubbard, ethics handlings, sessions, and courses. Those are the pillars of what Scientology is. And again, people don't really understand because so much of the so-called activism becomes grooming the audience. Oh, let me tell you about OT this, let me tell you about OT blah, and CMOIXU, and all these terms that were used to literally normalize all of this dysfunction. Now it's being done on reverse because, and I get it. It's like as trauma survivors, they're trying to explain, they're trying to rationalize, but it's like, it's time to stop rationalizing it all. It's time to look at the facts on their face. It requires us to be adults. It requires us to be able to hold to things that are so hard and complicated, but that's what adulting is. You're supposed to be able to take things that are unthinkable, like this tragedy. I mean, it's like the amount of people that are so enmeshed, by design, right? And enmeshed as a trauma term, literally, but it's by design. Like it's designed to keep everyone like that. And so
and
again,
they intentionally, like with couples, with partnerships, with parents and kids, my understanding is they just separate and exploit each party. And the parents, like you said, they willingly allow themselves to be separated from their kids and not to be in touch with their kids. Because I'm thinking, as a parent myself of 11-year-old son right now, I couldn't imagine, I couldn't imagine that, and I couldn't imagine like not being in touch with him every day or nearly every day, So, that's when I'm just floored when I hear people say, like your story. People they don't have contact with their kids. And
That's
you
like
lose all contact. And you become senior than your parents, because that's the other seductive thing about it, right? I was in a more powerful position than my parents because they were not in the Sea Org, so they're lower, and it's a caste system of master-slave. The whole entire pyramid is a master-slave program being run. And again, children, there is no scenario in the world where a child can sign up to be someone's slave. It's disgusting, it's despicable, it's nauseating. And that's what ends up happening when you do the courses. You have a supervisor that controls your entire life. You have an auditor that controls your entire life. And going back to this point, Gretchen, you were talking about separating families. They're data mining everybody, right? Like, what's going on with the mom? What's going on with the dad? What's going on with the child? And the people at the back office is called a case supervisor, because again, it's like all of this abuse is being supervised, video recorded, watched. So the idea that the parents don't know is completely false. The idea that no one at the hotel know, they're all watching it and documenting it, right? It's actually the watching and the documenting that gives them that cognitive dissonance of like, oh, it couldn't be illegal what we're doing because we really are video recording it and transcribing it. Imagine you as a therapist, like, I've never been to a therapist's office where everything I'm saying is being like written down, right? You know what I mean? And then my therapist is discussing with a case supervisor, and then they're making plans about how to and again, it's like the power dynamic imbalance is so severe, and there are no guardrails or common sense protections that a therapist would have, right? You're fraternizing with your therapist. You're going to lunch with your therapist. You're going to, they become your everything. Like there's no boundaries at all. To the boundaries, but going back to the consent. And it is an extreme role play at the end of the day, because you go to a course, you drill with a doll what's going to happen in the session. A doll, like any groomer would do, a teddy bear, a little doll. It's all, make believe until you're at the hotel with those scans strapped to your hands, being asked disgusting, unthinkable questions that they already told you with the doll we're going to be asked. So then you're just thinking, okay, now we're doing it for real. And it's all of that disgusting, groomed dysfunction. It's been made to look like it's something valid, but again, I don't buy it. I don't buy it now that I'm adult. I'm disgusted. I'm nauseated, and I can't imagine that there's kids still there. I'm, appalled that not enough people are coming forward with information, right? Because we're 74 years this is going on. So for 74 years, there's been so much misinformation on the public record. For so many years, no one's given an F about the kids. That couldn't have been more of a problem because every parent brings kids. So this idea like, oh, our kids in the Sea Org, our kids not in, kids are being audited, ethics handled, and given courses. In the Sea Org, outside of this, doesn't matter. They're being exposed to that. So that at its bottom line is already the problem. Then it can then spawn off into a million other problems, right? It's like the kid that got essay, the kid that got, signed up into the Sea Org, the kid that blew, so many things, because again, it's a nightmare. It's a data mining nightmare. The fact that these people know everything about anybody, like that's not normal. Like that's not normal.
No,
and there's no responsibility. There's no oversight. There's no one checking to make sure people are not getting hurt. No.
Well,
so Serge, go ahead, Gretchen.
Yeah, no, you go ahead, Keila. I've been stepping out here.
Oh, no, I was going to ask, first thing is, the kids cannot consent. Okay, no, they cannot. And they sure cannot consent to a billion-year contract. That right there should make everybody's antennas go up, that this is not right. But number two, I was going to ask you a question, Serge. Have you heard Journey? Have you seen Journey? Her YouTube channel is the Journey 2020. She is doing, she just put out a lot of information that you may be interested in. It's about the kids in Uganda. The landslides that just happened, 2 different ones happened, and the parents were all killed, and there was hundreds of orphan children. Well, guess what? They're called ideal orphanages. And guess what the stats are each week? How many they can keep. So now they're mining a whole new set of children, and that's a whole new problem. And Journey is going down that. She's putting out that information as fast as she can. So I didn't know if you're aware of that, but that's definitely going on right now as we speak. And she gets the stats every week. She's getting this information and she's putting it out there. And it is something that just, I couldn't believe when I heard it, that their stats are the number of orphans they can keep in that orphanage, the ideal orphanages. So,
I think about, Serge, what you've said, and it's one thing to have, and I'm not trying to compare traumas in the least, but when someone is groomed, abused, exploited in a home environment or something, or let's say they're not in Scientology, let's just put it that way, there's other systems around them that they're exposed to that could be a signal like that's not okay. That they're exposed to other families or school, public schools or private schools, or just interaction with other kids of, that aren't part of that dysfunctional, abusive system.
Right.
But what another level of trauma and fear that I can just imagine when you're not only in that situation as a minor, as a kid, but the whole system that you're in, and you're isolated from all the outside systems, let's call them, that's promoted. That's it, everyone is in this group think that you can't escape it. So it's not only that the abuse is happening, is that it's perpetuated, and the mindset is what, like you're saying, the crap that's espoused is what's keeping it, like you can't escape it. So all of a sudden there's like layers of the abuse and the fear that come around when you're in Scientology. And that, and then the fear of, if the disconnection, if you leave or somehow try to get help from an outside place, that you could be cut off from everyone, every familiar thing that and that's another source of fear, right?
And the fact of the fear of, don't, just like he said, the language was switched around so much and altered so much that their therapy, was auditing, or their counseling was auditing. And that's, well, when you get to the outside world, that what are you going to fear? You don't want to go back into that. And if that's the only language that You
And
know,
much has
I
been
mean, I
said
don't.
about the so-called, stance on mental health that Scientology has, but I've also pushed back on that because at the end of the day, it comes back to they don't want any of their victims having any access to mandated reporters. Their teachers are
Right.
compromised. Their doctors are compromised. The therapist, you'll never end up there, or because again, you get told this is the worst thing, and it's like, do they really have a problem with the fact that you're ending up with these professions? Because again, they put a whole museum of psychiatry as the
Yeah.
worst thing, right? But it's like, when I finally did leave, and it was horrific. The day, when I did leave, I lost all the people that I knew and all of that, right? It's like, it is like, committing suicide alive, because
Right.
it's like you're literally completely, like, everyone in your life is dead to you. I mean, and that's how I would see it. You know what I mean? Like when I understood it, when I started to understand it, like all the stuff that was groomed, normalized, that you saw it like this, right? It's like I was no longer this volunteer that I told myself I was. Oh, I sacrificed so much for this nonprofit. I all of a sudden understood that that was a false pitch, that it couldn't have been more deranged or false. So again, you end up in, like, with a lot of heart wanting to harm yourself because you are in this roadkill state. The first place that I landed was at a psychiatrist's office because I was desperate. And I was like, maybe something really horrible will happen to me or not, but it's there when I actually started speaking to the worst boogeyman that I started to see, right? Going back to this insular thing, that we were all so insulated that there was no other compare. As a child, you don't have okay, this works like this works like that. But in there with the psychiatrist, it's like when I started to understand how sadistic the system really is, and how, there is no world in which the world is getting saved while you are taking advantage of kids with full impunity. So that's just, you cannot be both things. You cannot be saving it and putting all these kids in unthinkable, indefensible positions. And yes, all adults couldn't be more implicated up to their neck and ears. A lot of who has made about, oh, David Miscavige. Us as children almost never had anything to do with that man. So that was the problem of adults. Adults had to do with them. We were never senior enough. He didn't give an F about us. He was.
Ask you, Serge, wasn't he also a victim of Elron? I mean, I'm just not trying to be the most hated person on the internet, but I'm just saying.
No. I called it out as such because, again, it's like Ron Miscavige sent him across state lines from New Jersey over to California to be L. Ron Hubbard's peon, right? And so it couldn't be more, literally, he's the face of the problem. And again, going back to, like, the problem with Scientology is not David Miscavige. The problem with Scientology is all the law firms that are on retainers taking money for child slavery in America. The Constitution says, the 13th Amendment, that slavery has been abolished. Well, leave it to the Scientology attorneys to make child slavery great again, to carve a loophole for themselves. Oh, this is the very First Amendment, because our parents, again, this is how they play their whole legal strategy. Oh, don't discriminate against us minorities that want to believe whatever in the hell we want, and the First Amendment couldn't be more valid about that. Well, you know what? Double check, because if the First Amendment is going to be, used as a way to weaponize and bring child slavery back, America's bringing child slaves back into its shores thanks to Scientology. I was a child brought from Mexico to be a slave in a hotel. So nothing has changed apparently in America. We're still just all about slavery. And if you pay enough attorneys to make that case for you, then the law will view you as such. The law will go as far as telling you still even have to arbitrate with your slave masters. So,
that is horrible.
It's so, again, those are the facts. That's what needs to be confronted. This is a legal problem. The fact that we were made child slaves. David Miscavige didn't go to school. In what world is David Miscavige the one really with the problem? Who put the law license on the line to make that case to the IRS, to make that case to the DOJ, to make that case in all the courts where all these attorneys go lie through their teeth? And the courts, playing dumb, we really cannot interpret the words a convicted felon wrote on a piece of paper. That's how we got fucked over. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So the courts can really get their heads out of their you-know-what and actually start applying the law. Because the kids that went to 7th grade education, such as myself, see straight through their sham. We didn't have to go to an Ivy League school. Thanks to all of these people that enslaved us in this country, we have no road for that. But you know what we do have now? The facts on our side. And we do demand answers, and we do demand actual intervention be done, because kids couldn't be more exposed to this as they're literally sitting there at the hotels, as we've seen through all the lives, as we see, you catch this over and over and over. It's like, children are a part of this operation. They're literally couldn't exist without us. Like the hotels couldn't have operated. Debbie Cook couldn't have run her hotel. That she made $2 million a week every week. I mean, it's also that is the amount of money being transacted, is the fact that a self-admitted felon can go and, I mean, you are a therapist, Gretchen. There's no world where a self-admitted felon can go and tell you A, B, C, D, and G of a crime, and then you're helping him float it away if he pays you $50,000 more for a program that you can do that will have him circumvent the law. I mean, that's what they offer at the hotel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
I'm just going to let that one. Yeah, I'm just going to let that one.
That needs to resonate.
Yeah.
That really needs to resonate.
It's all just so egregiously wrong. It's so indefensible. Like, the facts cannot be defended. It's all indefensible. I mean, what was anyone thinking was going to happen if the words of a convicted felon were followed to the letter by not one? We're talking industrial size scale of this operation. Yeah. They're in Australia, they're in Germany, they're in France, they're in Denmark, they're in England. And for us as kids, that's what we also thought. Well, it cannot be illegal if it's everywhere, you know.
Yeah,
but
so there's normalizing of it, and when you normalize something like that, and you think, well, how could this continue to go on if something was so perverse and terrible about it? Why would not someone speak up and say something? And that's almost another layer.
They're not allowed to. Y'all weren't even allowed to speak up, right, Serge? You could not speak up. You could not say anything. You couldn't question. You do not question.
Right. Well, I mean, not there. And our critical thinking skills were 100% paralyzed, right? Because we were literally abused in horrific, sadistic ways if we ever brought up anything that we didn't agree with. So again, going back to, this is forced and shoved down your throat as a child. Like, it's not okay. It's not acceptable. It's dangerous. It's deranged. And, you know, the advocacy that is being done a lot of the time goes into all of this cognitive dissonance and wishy-washiness of, you know, pretending that there was good faith and that somehow there's some bad apples here that somehow poisoned the well. And if only Shelley was found, and if only David was really dealt with. And it's like, that doesn't do anything to a child. Children are still going to be in danger if David gets removed, if Shelley gets found, if any of those sanitized BS talking points are really taken seriously. Like, but again, it's like, even all our audiences, there's only a certain amount of bandwidth that you have to understand Scientology, and that's being flooded with misinformation to keep the focus not be the amount of institutional industrial sized kids that get through those hotels, that get put through that abuse. And that's why, you know, none of it passes the smell test. You know, it's like, we don't have to go beg the IRS to really, take away their tax exemption, because again, it's like, the IRS is in cahoots with what goes on in the hotel. They are endorsing it. They have
Yeah.
since 1993. So what? 3 decades of endorsing everything that happened at the hotel.
Absolutely.
This is state-sponsored child trafficking of minors. It's like the state couldn't be more up to their neck and ears. Like, this is happening in Florida. This is happening in California. Kamala is in California. Donald Trump is in Florida. So Democratic and Republican issues
it's just
through and through.
it's a people issue.
It's a people issue. And yes, it's taken us, the kids that were there, having a front row seat at that dysfunction, witnessing it, having to piece it all back together, having to confront the most unthinkable, disgusting truth that anyone could ever want, that you wouldn't wish this in your worst enemy. But yet here we are, because we don't want any more children being abused. No one stood up for us. No one made these points. No one has said anything to curtail in 74 years the unfeathered access to kids that all of these grown adults have given themselves. Because again, our parents brought us to a collective of adults that all had the ability to make us fair game. And that is being called out. That is completely disgusting, completely unthinkable. What in the F were you all thinking? And where are the Scientology parents repudiating anything? Because they never repudiate anything. They just pitch themselves as, I was the victim. And sure, you were a victim too, but you were also part of the problem. And as long as you don't go and fess up to what you did that created that problem, how you personally contributed your own children to that problem, if you're not sounding the alarm on other parents doing this to their kids today, then how different are you from the people still at the hotel? Because I would argue that the people at the hotel have more of an excuse to really go with, oh, I really bought the L. Ron Hubbard pitch. But if you're outside, you no longer have that excuse. Go to the FBI, go to the authorities, become a cooperating witness, bring the evidence, wake the F up to whatever the hell you did, and then change it. Like, I don't care what these parents have to do. As long as there's kids there, mountains have to be moved. But that's never been because again, it's like all the media has done is make this, adults are having problems. We really want to hear how David beat you. And it's like, and then the story hasn't progressed for a decade, right? It's like, that's the last time you ever heard about anything, because the corporate media couldn't be more about sanitizing this level of child trafficking and abuse that I would say is the equivalent of Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell on steroids.
Right.
Video recording, check mark. Kids being put in hotel rooms with massage tables where people were paying for us to give them massages inside of the hotel. All video recorded, again, compromising information, right? It's like, how do they have these people at a whole stronghold? It's because they're all the blackmail, right? Like, they're in a criminal conspiracy. They're compromised. And at one point, they're better served staying in that insular bubble than coming out, because the ones that come out have to realize that whatever in the hell they were doing in that criminal conspiracy actually is not legal, is not okay, is not defensible, and there's actual repercussions that need to be faced so that the record can be set straight and we can actually have no kids in there, because that's the point that's being made over and over.
So, Serge, what I've noticed, I'm sorry, Gretchen, I'm walking over to you, but I said what I've noticed is second gens, some of the second or third gens, I've noticed a pattern as we've been down this rabbit hole for a couple of years now, that never ends with y'all. I've noticed a pattern that they're getting out before their children are exposed, or they're not allowing their children to be exposed to it. There's just, you've got Reese, you've got Liz Gale, you've got Nor, you've got, I'm just saying that.
Unfortunately, it's minimal, because so many of our friends that are still there, my sister's still there. You know what I mean? My nephew, underage nephew, still being exposed to everything. So a few people do come out, but it's such a minority, again, because we're at a war with misinformation. L. Ron Hubbard's pitch is all based on misinformation. All the paperwork that the crooked Scientology attorneys put into the courts that have allowed them to lie through their teeth with no due diligence. Nobody does due diligence. Nobody does heavy lifting. We did the due diligence, because guess what? We had to study L. Ron Hubbard at age 12. So what's the excuse from all these judges to not study it because, oh, the Constitution really says that freedom of, then okay, then Jeffrey Epstein should have hired Monique Yingling. They should have put a cross in front of their mansion and they should have just carried on doing what in the hell they were doing. That's how it doesn't pass the smell test. And we've seen
and their rights end. Their rights end when they start trampling on your rights. Like, if they can say the First Amendment all they want, but your right ends when you start infringing upon my right. And the children have that same.
And they're doing illegal stuff.
And it's illegal. So you don't have, they have no right.
And it's all being done with impunity. It's all being watched. It's all being recorded. It's all being written about. Like, that's the problem with it, right? It's like, no one here can claim they didn't know the problem existed. This is not Larry Nassar, where one person was doing something disgusting that everybody thought he really was a doctor, right? Like, the parents weren't taking their children to a known PEDO.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In my case, I was put to be the therapist, so-called therapist, twinned with a self-admitted PEDO.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the only one. And again, it's like everybody knew because, talking about criminal acts, like, and you guys have seen this now from the questioning. The questioning is exact. It's like, it's not just innuendo. It's not just like, everybody goes, yeah, but the Catholics or whatever. It's like the Catholics don't data mine. Have you committed rape? Like, that's what the questions are in the Scientology hotel. That's called interrogation. That's called not confession. You're not confessing when you're answering a direct question that incriminates yourself against your Fifth Amendment right, mind you, because that right is also out the window for these people. So there you go. Fifth Amendment right is out the window. It's being monetized because the hotel brokers programs disgusting, unthinkable, senseless programs that don't deal with anything that people that were doing that nonstop to kids at the hotel that get a very cushy outcome, because the hotel always pitches us like, oh, but we're very against it. No one at the hotel is saying, go have at it with the kids publicly. Never mind that if you do end up getting caught with that and self-admitting to it, then you get this very cushy road of like, oh, ethics handlings that have nothing to do with facing that crime with the law. Go ahead.
Or maybe to another country.
Well, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around how, and I'll follow your lead in doing this. PEDO is not something like, in other words, we've all heard Tori's story with her epilepsy, seizures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she had to take medication, and they didn't want her to take. Obviously, medication is off the table there, but there's such a disdain for people with disabilities, LGBTQIA plus community. I mean, there's so many different groups, and yet how do, like you said, I mean, that's hard for me to even like fathom. Like, how can you, almost shun people with a disability that they don't have any control over? They're born with something, and yet they're embracing these really twisted, perverse folks.
But they're brought up in it. They're just, they don't know the cognitive dissonance. Like, that's what they're. Go ahead, Serge. I'm sorry.
What was Serge? I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I thought what you were saying also is like, they knowingly will bring these people in and know that they have a history or know that they're aware of it, and they're going to place them with kids.
Yeah.
If anything, if they want to audit them, like you said, that's their business, but they shouldn't be auditing with kids. They should be with adults.
But I mean, again, Gretchen, the erasure of children and adults in here is what is indefensible, and is what every single Scientology parent and adult is guilty of de facto. Like I said, maybe they didn't want to join a hotel that had this level of depravity going on, because there's all these bells and whistles to embellish it all, right? I'm not trying to blame my parents. I'm not trying to blame Tori or anyone else that got involved in this as going, where can I go and abuse kids without any problem? I'm not saying that that's what they wanted to do, but The minute they walked into that hotel, the minute that children were manning the reception desk, the minute that children were being offered to give them an ethics interview, the minute that children were being offered for them to be their auditor, the minute that children were being clapped at graduation, oh, yay, look at that 13-year-old just becoming a class 4. And as we saw with Tony Ortega recently, there's a girl that started her journey not long ago at 8 years old, reading all the books. We were adulticized since birth.
Right.
Like, we were treated as adults. You see the Grant Cardone daughters. Why do they act like that? Those are not normal girls. Those are not normal kids. I spoke just like them. We were very ahead for our age and all of that. But again, that's called depravity. That's called you are raising your child in disgusting ways.
So can I flip for a moment to your experience? I mean, your experience, obviously, you're talking about, but in terms of how, and I know this is, but tapping into that part in particular, being treated as an adult from a very young age, how have you been able to kind of process through that? And I don't know, I mean, I don't want to get in too much into personal if you're not, feeling like that's whatever boundary you want to put here, but just because we talk about, I mean, just being in that role of not having, a stolen childhood in a way, right? And just not being able, like, going through those developmental stages the way you're supposed to and the way you're supposed to be nurtured in doing so. What have you learned now? Like, what do you take with you now about just how to live as an adult? Because then essentially you were treated as, like, we're seeing you as an adult now, but you were treated like that by Scientology way back when,
Yeah.
right? And
No, and I
so,
love that question. I love that question because, I mean, again, it's all part of the journey of surviving this thing. And I've had to do a lot of work in therapy. I mean, a lot of what, I mean, and when I talk about therapy, it's like I've gone to a psychiatrist, I've gone to a therapist, I've gone to another therapist, I've done EMDR, I've done so many different modalities because, I mean, the level of trauma we have is so, it's so multifaceted that there's no one size fits all. There's not, and we realize we are on a journey of recovery, like for the rest of our lives, just like, because a lot of the thing that I would say, Gretchen, is like, imagine we are left without our limbs after they were done with us, right? But then we somehow have our limbs. So people go, oh, they must be fine. They must not be handicapped. They must have it all together. But, if you live without limbs, you need to go to therapy for the rest of your life to use your new robotic feet, to use your new, and you're going to always have to be, doing that therapy over and over to compensate for what's been broken. I mean, we were broken, like shattered. Like, a child should never be in a position to be the dominatrix of an adult. Going back to the point of what you just said about auditing kids and all of that, it's like, I was a child, like auditors become dominatrix de facto, and dominatrix that are unhinged and dominatrix that are deranged, because the BDSM community would say, well, wait a minute, we have informed consent. The minute you say the word orange, everything stops, et cetera, et cetera. In these audits, nothing like that happens. The power dynamic imbalance is so twisted. The auditor gets all the leverage. And in fact, the more the person says, no, I don't like it, I'm crying, I'm breaking down, they double down, they triple down, they say that whatever's making you cry is going to make you stop crying. So again, it's this sadistic, disgusting things that end up being, pitched as very helpful for your mental health. And it couldn't be more the opposite. And that's why, that's why I'm nauseated and disgusted in the aftermath of this whole thing, because I can imagine that my whole entire formative years were exploited like that, with the consent of my parents, with the consent of all the adults that were there. Because again, I'm telling you, like L. Ron Hubbard said, do this. This is not hidden. This is not said. If they were looking at it in a different way, sure, the cognitive dissonance and all that. But, again, I bring everything back to the present time because it's what matters. I'm not here to blame, shame, and regret all the people that got caught up on this. I couldn't, again, it's like there's so many facets to this, but they do need to be told the truth. they need to accept it, and they need to do something to stop it, because that's on their recovery journey to do, right? Like, stop the abuse. Whatever you thought was normal, what can you do today to end it? How can it be done different? And I think that's my recovery journey too. You know, it's like the
Right.
only power I have today is in being able to make the points that I was not able to make as a child, that I was told were not right, make points about my legal constitutional rights that were shredded, right? I had the 13th Amendment was applied in reverse to me. I was brought to this country to be a slave. So whatever First Amendment this country wants to purport it has, it couldn't be more of a platitude at this point. Not to mention that, again, it's like, you know, I didn't go to school in this country. I have no idea how anything works. And none of these children do, because, again, we were told that the law was stupid, that everything else outside the hotel is stupid.
Yeah.
And the only thing you need to do is do the rhetoric. And you have these children becoming people pleasers to their own detriment over and over and over. And that's why we need more children advocates. We need more people, you know, really going, no more kids in Scientology, because, again, if there's anything to stop in this burning hotel is get the kids out. Then yes, get the seniors out. I advocate for everyone needs to be gotten out. Everyone needs to be helped. I don't think anyone not needs to be helped, including go get yourself a criminal attorney. That's help too.
Yeah.
You can get an advocate. Go pay for an advocate. Have criminal attorneys make a case that you were defrauded, that you were scammed by the people that did that to you. All of those contexts and roads are available for you to take. And I think that's what the recovery journey should be for everybody. It's like recovery calls for coming to truth. The truth is going to be painful. The truth is going to be unthinkable. But you know what? If we all join in and we all advocate for that truth to be acknowledged, and again, we're talking common sense. I'm not coming here with my opinion, right? Like, child abuse is one of those few things that we can all be like, you know what? We can all just very quickly agree that this is child abuse, period. It doesn't matter what you opine, what I opine. It's like, it's incumbent between us as adults in adult bodies. Right.
Yeah.
We're adults in adult bodies.
And I'm going to say this gently because I don't want to get myself into some trouble here. But there are systems at play, right? Like you said, I'll mention, like, we know back in the day, Al Capone was a criminal. He did mobster stuff, and how did he get arrested? Tax evasion. So I think we have to look at, in order to, just my kind of 2 cents here, in order to, like you said, stop the abuses, I think it has to come like multi-prong and look at lots of different angles. If there's anyone in the chat, or if you know anyone that is familiar with tax documentation or, you know, financial things, they might want to check out Scientology.
Our emails.
Yeah, that's
our
right.
emails. Yeah.
You don't want me to go further, Keela?
Go for it. Go for
right.
it. I mean, this is what we're here for.
Public record. It's on. You can.
It's
search
all
it.
public record.
So when you're tax exempt, you have to file something called a 990 form. Scientology has filed, and there is documentation online for anyone who's interested. And just check it out.
Just check it out.
We get a little confused. Keela and I looked through some of those, and Keela has a nonprofit, so she's not an expert, but you're very familiar with some of the documentation. So I'm not saying any more, but just there's some interesting things there.
There are very interesting, especially with the, like, Serge, you were exactly right about the just so many. It's just so much, and it's designed that way. And we started. Gretchen and I went down the rabbit hole one night, somewhere we probably shouldn't have went. Oh Lord! I mean, it's like you find one 990, and it's got one EIN number. Then you find another, and it says flag. Then you find another 990, and it actually has. And for the last 20 years, it's got the same. Or not? I'm sure it's not that long. I'm just saying, for the last however many we found, it's got the same exact person signing out of all the filings. You know, all the 990s. Then you've got the IAS, and then you've got. I mean, we just went. It is such all I can say, what a tangled web they weaved.
Yep.
And I wouldn't know where to start.
I can't dissect that, but
I can't
I
either.
would, if anyone knows anyone that could, because I think sometimes when you're into some things deep, like Serge, you've said that, and they are, then something's got to give at some point. So I
Well, and
think,
I do think that, you know, aside from that, like you said, you know, definitely the tax issue to me, the most concerning thing about the tax issue to me, again, because Kalia, you run a nonprofit,
Yes.
and it goes back to the devil's in the details, right? It's like, if these audits, we are asking somebody, have you committed a felony for which you have not been arrested? And then money's being transacted. And then that person incriminating themselves is getting off on not going through proper, you know, it's full-blown obstruction of justice being subsidized by the IRS. So we need to start
Right.
bringing up the IRS with, it's not like just a failure of oversight from the IRS. The IRS is aiding and abetting. And not only that, but it's also, child trafficking couldn't be more illegal. If hundreds of kids were brought
Right.
from all over the world, it couldn't be more illegal. It couldn't be more of an issue. And, you know, going back to me, and that's why I always bring it back to the kids, it's like, the biggest priority is the children that are
correct.
there right now. And we are owed as citizens of this country, we are owed the FBI to go and do nothing. You guys, they have to open the door. They have all the files of all the crimes. Everything I say, it's not I say exactly what we were doing, right? It's like,
Yes.
the folders are there. Everybody goes, oh, it would be so complicated. It would be so hard. It wouldn't be hard or complicated, given the fact that L. Ron Hubbard wanted all his co-conspirators to become fully implicated in this racketeering. That's what it's called. This is a racketeering scheme. That's why it's
Same
not
thing.
just,
Yes. Serge, I saw it on the 990s. Oh,
not just the child trafficking. It's not just the abuse of the elderly. It's not just that. It's like the entire
yes.
business model is called racketeering.
Human rights. You've got all these payroll. Okay, so just the child labor, the labor laws. Okay, Gretchen and I were looking at just for flag. I think it was the one
Yeah,
for
it was
flag.
flag and Clearwater. It
for
was, and
a
it was
whole
line
year,
item by line item. We went down.
they only had $23,000 in payroll at flag for the entire year. Come on. Okay, but they pay, but you're
And how much
paying
did
for
Serge
these.
just say that Debbie was at when he was there at the hotel? $2 million.
$2
What do you
million
think?
a week is what they were
A week.
bringing a week, up to
So
$2
that's,
million.
if I'm doing my
I
math
mean,
right, it's
and
104 million a year.
see, and
Yep.
that's what I'm saying. You've got 4 payroll, and that's it. Okay, so but you're having people pay for these services that you are exempt for. I cannot wrap my mind around
And
that.
services that are being done by children, going back to that point, right? Because it's like,
Yes.
it's that needs to be defended, because that's what's indefensible. They get around the whole volunteer thing because, again, I said, adults, it sucks to be you if you signed up to do this shit. But no one owes you coming and rescuing you from a scam that you're up to your neck and ears on. We can do it because we want to help you. We can do it because we have compassion and humanity. But it's the fact that kids are brought into it, right? It's like,
Yes.
Ghislaine Maxwell groomed other recruiters for her.
Absolutely.
So then those recruiters went and grabbed more girls to bring to Jeffrey. So what, are we now supposed to cradle and canoodle every recruiter because you should have known better? And again, it's like, if you thought you were going to save our world by abusing kids, double check on that delusion, because that's what's being asked of all of these people. It's like this idea that, again, there is no good faith, being the fact that convicted felon wrote the pieces of paper that everybody followed. And because it's so systemic, because it's so moronically robotic, you know, again, it's like, it's disgusting. It's unthinkable that so many parents would have been dehumanized, because that's really what the crime is. Everybody gets dehumanized by applying the technology of this disgusting convicted felon. Like,
and
everybody.
I can tell you, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And that's from Law School 101 when I was in law school. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Bottom line.
And by the way, that applies to, you hear stories about like Americans or anyone else going abroad. and they do something
Yes.
that's against the law, well, unfortunately, you're going to get the
Nah.
consequence for that, right? I mean, and there's so many, but being aware of the laws of when you travel, so it's no different. And I just want to point this out. I know we want to get to questions and comments, but Kathy Ann said in 28 states, I wonder why it's not 50, but clergy are mandated reporters,
be.
including California.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm a paramedic, and I am, and work mental health. I'm definitely a mandated reporter. You don't think I would report? I mean, I don't get it, but I wasn't. Back
But
to
remember,
Serge's
guys,
point,
there's
I
an
was not
entire
in there.
infrastructure there, but there's no
Right.
mandated reporters. These children have no access to any mandated reporters. And we wonder why 74 years they've been able to get away with it, because there's none. There's no mandated reporting going on. There's no crimes being reported to any police department anywhere, except for, the few of us that have gone on to speak to the
Right.
police. And they've never done anything because, again, it's like a racketeering scheme that is being state sponsored by the LAPD, that is being state sponsored by the
Yeah.
Clearwater Police Department, that is being state sponsored by the IRS. So this problem, as much as everybody wants Scientology to end the problem ends when it stops being state sponsored and sanctioned. The problem ends when a president realizes that they are, as a country, responsible. America, the one that really wrote on its constitution, really abolished slavery. Well, give it to L. Ron Hubbard to bring back the slave program and export it all across the world. Because a convicted felon that America bred to become who he became, again, Mike Rinder, David Miscavige, Marty Rathbun resurrected L. Ron Hubbard out of his grave. This problem was supposed to end, yet it didn't, because in 1993, they concocted a plan to make child slavery great again, to, purport that it's very legal what in the hell they're doing at the hotel. Meanwhile, no. Nothing at the hotel is being done with any type of legal anything. They're operating with full impunity because they're allergic to a shred of oversight. They don't want any oversight. They don't want to be told they're wrong. They don't want to be told they die. So that level of entitlement will always lead you to a black hole. And that's where, unfortunately, all Scientology adult participants are and can find themselves inside a deep black hole of criminal liability, which is what they have to face now.
And as the treasurer on a nonprofit 501c3, I can tell you that anybody can walk in and demand to look at my books at any time, and we are a public organization. If I don't provide that, they're going to strip away my 501c3, my tax exempt. Okay, I know I'm just saying, I don't understand why none of this is even. I don't understand. There's some mail fraud. They opened your mail. They went through your packages. Did you give consent for that? That's mail fraud. That's federal.
Right.
I mean, that's enough to get a warrant.
And
I
that's
just
what
don't
we're
get
thinking.
it.
This is racketeering.
I'm thinking, trying to find a way in through all of these tangled webs. There's got to be a place to start.
So if there's a headquarters, if the headquarters is in Clearwater and someone's in Clearwater, they can go into whatever and just say, I am a public citizen and I want to look at your books. And they have to, by law.
Yeah, the one that's signed, it'll say the books are in care of. And that's on every 990, the ones that we have. It'll say the books are in care of, and it'll give the address and the name. You can walk in there and any given business hours and business day and demand to look at their books, and they have to show them. That is a law. I know.
Well, and part of it is also going back to the so-called donation system. It's like millions of dollars are being donated for these fake pardons that are being given. I mean, Scientology teaches a course that a child can become more powerful than a sitting U.S. Supreme Court and President of the United States, because presidents of the United States can pardon federal crimes. Well, in that hotel, you're pardoning federal and state crimes. It doesn't matter. You just have the full power to, by the power invested in me, any overt or withhold you have fully and truthfully told me is forgiven by Scientology. Any.
So wake up, authorities.
So
they're taking over your jobs.
Like it's that level of bad faith, right? There is no world in which institutions can operate in bad faith. You're bringing up the example of the mafia. That's why the mafia couldn't survive, because if you're having an entire business model that operates in bad faith, then you have no place in modern society. If you are running a business model that scams and exposes kids to unthinkable, disgusting tortures and extremist role plays of which no child can consent to, and here's a point too that I don't see people making enough. It's like, you see all these operations to really stop like the child abusers, right? Where they're texting with a minor, just texting, even if the minor wasn't even supposed to be a minor, was supposed to actually be a full-grown federal agent on the other line. In Scientology, these people got access to not text us, to tell us, I effed you last life. Well, how did you F me? How did you put it in me? Why was I asking those questions of a grown adult as a child in a hotel room while they were paying for that service? Because that's what needs to be explained. If it's illegal to talk to children about things like that, then in what world are they arresting all the people that text with federal agents on the other line, while in Scientology hotels, they get a free pass to grab a hold to pay preferential rates to get a child? Oh, no, I don't want that 40-year-old woman that you got going on over there. I want the 16-year-old to audit me. Here's an extra 15%. So we're talking about thousands of dollars that are being spent on this. And that's where I go back to, no Scientology parent has plausible deniability. You all paid for it. You all, made wire transfers. Talk about wire fraud.
There you go.
Transfer from one bank to another. It's like, if you're taking all those steps as an adult, you can't just walk it back, leave the hotel, and pretend that you had no clue of nothing and that you're just a victim and it sucks to be you. And, and again, you just go to the media and talk about your adult problems without actually calling out what the children that are still not being advocated. We were never advocated for at the hotel. And as of the year 2024, we've still had no advocates, because, if you ask someone what's wrong with Scientology, they can't tell you because they don't know. Everybody has a glib understanding of Scientology. Well, I heard it's a thing that Tom Cruise does, but then I heard it's a religion, and I guess, you can believe it goes into all of that. And it's like, I'm sorry, but, in Scientology, they did teach me how to investigate. They did teach me how to get to the bottom of things. And that is what is called an altered importance. If you're bringing up issues that have nothing to do with saving children and protecting them as we speak, then you have altered importances. You're trying to derail the attention of the public to where the problem really lies at its core. At the basement problem core of this issue is the kids. Then everything else is built on top of it. The tax scheme, all the other schemes are built on top of kids at the bottom of this. And we have to go to the bottom of the foundation, because once that problem is confronted at its face, then nothing else can survive. Nothing else. The courses, the audits, the adults being part of it. You'll see a huge amount of adults going to be running for the hills. Oh, Scientology, I barely was part of that. Because what? Because it's going to be understood that there are just a bunch of adults that are all normalizing child abuse. And again, going back to they don't
want to get their hands dirty. Yeah.
Even the criminals don't have any sympathy for child abusers. Like, there is no world and you can be a child abuser and get away with it and be owed sympathy and compassion. All I'm asking is for all the people that participated in that to come to their senses and rectify it, because it shouldn't be up to us, the kids that was perpetrated on, to have to now do all the heavy lifting as well. It's like, they need to come with their own receipts and with their own testimony and realize what in the hell they've done.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I hope that time comes, and I hope that there is some, coming to the light and saying, hey, this is wrong. We can't continue on. Or at least, even if one adult, can you imagine, even if one or two adults were to stand up and say, there's something wrong with this. I know that this is in the whatever doctrine or whatever you call it, the words, but
Okay, thank you. That's what I've been looking for. Thank you, Kathy.
But
so everybody, Serge's panel, please look.
Keila, if you don't mind, I want to kind of ask your question paired with my question as
No,
an
go
end
ahead. Go
question.
ahead. Sarge,
Okay.
usually I ask the last question, but I'm going to let Gretchen do it this time because she's got,
So I asked kind of a similar question to Marilyn when we had her on, talking about her experience and her child, traumatic childhood.
Mhm.
What a two-part question. One, what would you say to your child self if you could send any message to your child self? Imagine yourself at whatever age that might be. It could, I don't know, just your child self. And then the other one, if there's, and then there is kids in Scientology right now that are being abused, exploited. What would you tell them, or what could you tell them now?
Well, to my child self, I would be telling them, you cannot consent to what you're being exposed to. You are coming with us. You deserve love. You deserve protection, and period. Like, you're going to be protected from being exposed, because just the exposure alone ended up with us getting abused and defrauded and gaslit and turned into slaves. And to all the children that are in Scientology right now, I would tell them that the children that were in your exact same shoes have woken up, are on the flip side, are advocating powerfully to make the case that you don't belong where you're being put. I don't care if it's your parents. I don't care if it's your grandparents. I don't care who in your family brought you and normalized all of this dysfunction. Is disgusting, it's indefensible, and you don't deserve it. Every child deserves advocates. They're owed advocates. As a society, if we're not literally going out of our way to advocate for kids, then what type of place are they going to be in? And I would know, we would know, because we had no advocates when we were at the hotel. There was no advocacy, right? All we've ever had is people being very concerned about the consenting adults. We have 74 years of media, blah, 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 all sanitizing their image. The media has been sanitizing it. They've not wanted to help a shred of kid. They've literally been so stupid and idiotic about how they investigate things. And I would know, because I was a child investigator. If we would investigate things the way the media investigates things, we would have had our heads spliced. Because again, it's called Investigation 101. Get to the core problem of the issue. Investigation 101, don't get influenced by the people that are creating the problem, because they might be lying to you, or, telling you part of the withhold, but not the rest, or misdirecting you over here, or where is Shelly? We haven't seen her in a while. Like, all of that is senseless. So as much as the kids there are not being advocated for, Denmark is already advocating for you. Denmark newspaper already called it slavery, what we went through, right? It's like, it's taken us how long for people to even wanting to go on the record and print it on a newspaper? Well, they haven't wanted to print that in the US. And we really are challenging the Tampa Bay Times, the LA Times, the New York Times, 3 papers that sit at the very top of this pyramid scheme, laundering their image, pitching BS, complete idiotic headlines that have nothing to do with helping kids, that end up ensnared, end up defrauded, end up abused, end up becoming child slaves at the behest of the American citizens that brought them here and the foreigners that have been allowed willy-nilly to bring kids. So,
yes,
you're right. And I'm glad that you said that. There are people advocating, like yourself, like all of us, like advocating for the kids. So if you you don't deserve this, and if you can get out, and you deserve the world, right? I mean, both you did, Serge, back then, and they do now.
yeah.
They don't deserve to be. That's unacceptable and
It's a
atrocious.
future. We're not going back. We can only go forward, right? And this is what the moment is calling for. We all have to go forward. You know, if the misinformation was there before, you know what, today, like I said, you know, as we're, you know, my role here is to speak truth to power, to empower you guys to understand what the problem is as concerned citizens, you know, to respect your time, to respect your bandwidth, to not flood you with a bunch of things that don't have anything to do with getting to the core issue of the problem, because I believe all of our audiences are here in good faith, really trying to understand what in the hell. You know, the Scientology, you know, phenomenon has been such a, you know, pop culture thing for so long, but nobody actually understands it. So the more we understand it, the more we can be powerful advocates for those kids. The more we understand why we have a problem with the situation, right? It's like, if I don't come and tell you I was placed to be a child auditor asking these disgusting questions, then you have nothing to go with, right? And I am that child, you know, I am that person that did this, that had this done to them. And I see, like, you know, again, from Tony Ortega, that this is still going on. So
Yeah.
is there right now as we speak. We've seen it from all the lives. So all our audiences are, you know, very, very well captivated on the subject of the kids. I think that the cat is out of the bag. I think it's organically growing. Kids cannot consent. No more kids in Scientology.
Yes.
What we're protesting, you know, when you're protesting, you have to be able to, what do we want to stop? You know, I want to stop their access, unfettered access to kids. And that's what I wish somebody would have done for me when I was there. So, and that's what I need to do for other kids now, because then also, you know, what type of adult are you if you leave the hotel with all of that knowledge and information, and then you don't turn around and do everything in your power to save the kids that are there? Because that's what happened to me, right? Like, nobody cared, nobody did it, nobody figured it out. Well, it's now incumbent on us to figure it out, to, you know, work with our communities. You know, we are allowed to be concerned citizens. We are allowed to tell the Scientology parents to stop doing what they're doing. You know, and the more we tell them and the more they realize that this is wrong, the more that message comes across, the more we can deal with the problem. So I really want, you know, everyone to help us end that problem. And I think we can end the problem because, you know, it's written in the law. The law is on our side, not on theirs. The law is on our side. So we have to act accordingly and act powerfully and advocate powerfully for this derangement that cannot exist in modern society, period.
So I have another question. I have a last question. Well, I have a question, and you can have the last one.
I have a question.
I do. I have one. I have one.
Okay.
Serge, what can we do as never ends that are here to support all of you and to do what we can to help you? What can we do?
That was my question too. That was my question too.
Great minds think alike. What can we do? What can any of our chat, any of us up here, what can we do?
I mean, first of all, shout out to everybody, because again, it's like, we have oxygen in our lungs. Your attention, your time, your liking our videos, you're spreading the message, you educating other people to become advocates. I mean, that's the job that's incumbent upon all of us. Let's empower more advocates that can advocate for the children. Let's put the information there so it can be digested. We all agree with it already. This is not something we have to campaign or convince people. This is already something that everyone is programmed with, like protection of children, protection of animals, protection of things that you have to protect their innocence, you know? So I think it's again, it's like, we can do this easily by, again, just, you know, educating. Education is everything. Education is the power, right? Like, you can empower yourself if you don't have the facts, if you don't understand, if you don't know where to grab a hold of it. Like, you guys were like, well, this tax thing and whatever. And I get that, because that's, you know, you guys are in that world of nonprofits and all of that, you know. So for me, it's like, yeah, sure, let's look at the tax thing, but then let's also start asking the IRS why people can donate $2 million to launder self-admitted felonies, because that also is not making any sense. So it's how can we give you more context so that we can bolster, you know, our case, to make the case that this is illegal, this needs to stop. There's no world that anybody wants this. Anybody that's, even the LAPD, I think they're out of their mind to be so cushy and cozy with these people. But again, no one that has not seen a child be audited understands how disgusting it is. Because, you guys, all we would have to do is just like when P. Diddy was actually brought down because everybody saw what it was that he was doing in that hallway. Well, imagine these people have hundreds and thousands of hours of children being abused for hours, right? And one of those videos being shown, I mean, no one could even watch it, you guys. It would be disgusting to the nth degree. Like, it's torturing a child cannot even be seen. But these people have literally normalized and video recorded it all. So the more we understand that again, this is being done with impunity and with full knowledge. So we do need to stop and campaign against the parents to tell them, no, what you did was wrong, and get more parents on board to really take accountability, which is something that they have to figure out for themselves. Like, it's not my job to figure out how they can take accountability, but I can, continue campaigning so that they do show up with accountability, because that's the only thing that's going to stop anything.
And that was where I was going with the mail fraud, with these little bitty things, just to open the door to get law enforcement, to get the federal, to get somebody in, grab those tapes, get some way, somehow to get in there to get that.
Well, yeah, but it's like, again, going back to the enablers, the American press. If the American press was listening to the children and what they went through, the American press had that same level of interest in finding out about adults getting beaten by David Miscavige, we wouldn't have this problem, because the police sorts out their priorities according to what crisis is being made by the newspaper. That's supposed to be the whole role of the, reporters, that you shouldn't be able to get away with crimes because then you'll get reported and then you'll get caught. Well, the American press has been on the side of child traffickers, on the side of enabling this, on the side of ignoring, trivializing, whitewashing children being brought from other countries to be turned into slaves in America. When that is actually acknowledged, this problem goes away in 2 seconds, because again, this is highly illegal. We're not requesting anything special. This is equal treatment under the law is what we're demanding as of the year 2024. Because guess what? Children that were brought up in Scientology have not been treated equally under the law. We've been treated illegally under the law with full oversight of the law. So the law is who made this crime happen to us. Our parents couldn't have done these criminal acts if the courts wouldn't have been going, oh yeah, sure, go ahead and do it. Believe whatever in the hell. So it's the courts of these United States. It's all the enablers that have been state sponsoring what has been normalized at scale.
Another just comment about that, and I appreciate what you just said, and I think to go on to that and say, what I'm aware of, unless the laws have changed in the state of California, I can't speak to every state because I'm located in California, not too far from you, Serge. But Megan's Law states, right, that a registered sex offender can only be their location can't be within a certain distance from schools and places where children reside. And so that might be another inroads to think about. And I don't know, this is on my end, my ignorance about Scientology, like they have to, registered sex offenders, if they're known to be registered sex offenders, that's a whole other thing, and they've been convicted, they have to report their location with whoever the powers that be in their parole or probation. And there's, certain, otherwise they get in trouble. And I wonder if that's a way to, obviously, if they're been convicted and they're in Scientology and they're being audited by children, that's a clear violation on that side. So obviously, in addition to what they're
but see, they don't usually get the registered ones so much because, they really kind of try to filter out problems. They don't have a problem with somebody admitting that they have a problem with being that. So to me, whether they're convicted or not, but they're getting convicted by Scientology, right? Because they're going there. And when I tell you, we're talking about these people spending 100 hours getting interrogated on the subject, because when it comes up, this is a very fruitful, makes a lot of money for a Scientology subject, because again, they can sell them the programs. And again, it couldn't be more of a lopsided incentive. It's disgusting, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, this person has been essaying his daughter. Let's do a 100-hour interrogation to really find out time, place, form, and event of every single time they've done that to the daughter. That's tantamount to full incrimination. They don't have to be convicted. They're telling on themselves. If they went to a police station and did the same thing that Scientology does, 1 block away is the Clearwater Police. If they go to the Clearwater Police and do the exact same thing they do at the hotel, they end up locked up for hundreds of years in one place. On the other place, they end up with a tax incentive. So by all means, Florida, make that make sense. So in one hotel, you get a tax incentive, and over here, you get 100 years in jail. So which one is it? The law. That's why I go to this problem is a law problem.
That's right.
This is
You're right.
This is legal malfeasance, what it's called.
Yeah, I mean, and just like with Miriam, she's like, I mean, who's gonna? We're not here just to speak. I mean, we speak for Miriam too. We're here to give her a voice. You know, there's somebody somewhere out there. I'm just somewhere out there that can help. All it would take is somebody to care enough to latch onto this and don't let it go. Report it or in law enforcement. And if you want to make it to the top, that's Scientology wide open. All I'm saying is there's got to be somebody in the place out there that can do something to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know,
believe, again, going back to what we can all do, right? This is a campaign. This is going to be a marathon. I understand that things don't just change within, again, going back to adult, being an adult. Yes, as a child, you want everything to stop right now. But going back to all the power that these communities are giving us, all the power that it is to raise awareness, we're not going anywhere. We're not in a rush. We just have to continue putting it out there, continue building a coalition, continue informing parents, continue informing everybody. Everybody needs to be informed that they've been misinformed. So we have so much work ahead of us. Like there's literally mountains of work ahead of us to disentangle all of this. We're at the very, very beginning of, like you said in your introduction, this is a brand new beginning every day. That's what life gives you. That's what I would end up with. It's like you are being given a new day to make a different choice. And that's it. And then if you continue making that choice, the more you make that good choice, the more the problem can be dealt with. And that's what we can control. Like you guys giving this platform and raising awareness from your own standpoint, like that's already helping a lot. We've never had this. This has never happened, It's all grassroots. And, soon enough, we will have, thousands of people sitting outside of Washington, D.C., demanding that whoever the president of the United States is ends the practice of child slaves being made into America, because again, it says it in the Constitution. That's what we're demanding. Child slavery was abolished by the Constitution. Let us see, the proof is in the pudding. Show us the money.
And by the way, one thing that I personally would like to take on with this channel is to show people that I'm not a scary, hopefully, I'm not a scary, devil worshiping kind of person. I'm a regular lady, a regular person that just wants to help people and just wants to help people in their healing process. I have no agenda. I have training, but I have training in mental health and how to help people get through different traumas, depression, anxiety, relationship issues, family problems, all those things. So if there's one thing I want to bring to the table is that as a therapist, you don't have to be afraid of me, like therapists, like you spoke about, the idea of therapy has been so demonized in Scientology, and it's not something to be afraid of. Even people that are in Scientology, for goodness sake. I mean, there's a lot of stigma about just making that call and reaching out. And so I'm trying to just kind of
That's where I
diffuse that and just say, okay, like, let's take a breath.
yeah,
It's okay. I mean,
and
I'm a
that's same for me, Gretchen.
I'm a therapist that gets therapy. I always say that. And, you
Me
know,
too.
and that's I'm
Well,
okay being honest about that because we all need help. And
and I think
I
one thing
can't
to
do
also
therapy myself.
emphasize,
Yeah.
one thing to emphasize is we are attacking a problem. We are attacking the issue. The issue is what's wrong. The people that got caught up are the people that got caught up. This is not a personal attack.
Right.
This is not a hit on your ego. This is not, we are coming against you personally. You all have the excuse that L. Ron Hubbard made you do what you did. That still has a double-edged sword because you still did horrible
Yeah.
things. But they were L. Ron Hubbard ideas. They were not in your humanity because that's how this was done, right? Like these people were forced to do the
Yes.
unthinkable. So, you know, I believe there's a world where we can have a big amnesty and people can come together. All of that is down the road when accountability's been had, when transparency's been seen, where the truth has prevailed and no children are at risk anymore. You know, so this is not about, oh, let's go around and jail every single person. I mean, that's not my prerogative. That's not what I'm trying to do with this. I'm trying to fight the war of misinformation. Let all the people that were involved in this, that we are attacking a problem. You shouldn't consider yourself part of a problem because you were literally being used as a surrogate. I mean, it still has responsibilities, but you're not the maker of this problem. The maker of this problem is L. Ron Hubbard and his biggest sycophants at the top that made this a thing. Then after that, you have a whole bunch of people that are caught up in this web of dysfunction and atrocity. So I also want to say that, you know, to clarify to anyone that is out there that hears me talk about Scientology parents, I speak about it in a generality because it is all of them. There's not one that I hate over another, or is this your fault, or the other one is whatever. It's like, it's you as a collective of adults. You're in company of all the other parents. There was nothing unique about you. That's what we understand, and we can extend compassion and grace for you to come out of this. We want you to come out of it, and coming out of it looks like you taking accountability. That's the only way out of
Right.
this problem.
And that's
So-
perfectly said.
And it is.
Perfectly
And
said, Serge.
once there's that accountability, there can be a huge sigh because you can start the process of advocacy and helping and being a part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
Yeah,
And
and
like I said,
we're
right,
out
it's like
here.
advocates, attorneys are advocates. Attorneys, you know, criminal attorneys need to dig into this problem and figure out what case needs to be made for the people that got ensnared into it, that were made to do crimes, that were made to do all these things. Like, there's a ton of advocacy. I mean, there's so much advocacy needed because the problem is so gigantic and widespread. It's a literal international problem that we have. But, you know, we can all start setting an example of how to start dealing with it right here at home where it all began in the United States. You know,
Right.
like they can start taking the lead from the newspaper in Denmark, because the American press has no more excuses that we cannot say slavery because we're afraid of getting sued.
Oh my God.
They could be citing that newspaper as a source that can start being put into the consciousness of this country, because this country does not like slavery. This country is not for it. It did abolish it. Now, these people carved out loopholes for themselves to get away with a disgusting scheme. It happens. Unfortunately, it's horrendous, but it's like, I have faith in the American system. I have faith in the American people. I have faith that nobody wants this, and that we are actually, as much as it looks like we're, you know, this small thing, we are the ones that have the facts on our side. So that's what matters in the end, you know, and
language does matter. Language does matter.
It does. And I'm so thankful that, I mean, that's a change, Serge. I hope that it does help you in some little way, that you see that change in Denmark. Something is being done. Like your voice has not gone unnoticed. Yeah. It's just, something is being done. We just need to keep that momentum going.
And with each person's voice, with Serge, with Miriam, with others, it gets louder and louder, and it's harder to ignore.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, you want to go to, Sarge, do you feel like going? Do you have time to go through some
You
comments and
have
questions?
energy.
real quick? Do you have time? No, I don't want to. I don't want to be. I wanted
Sure,
to be
because
mindful.
we haven't answered any questions. I feel like
I know.
Ah, no.
There's a lot. There's been a lot of stuff in the chat.
I talk a lot, you guys. That's a problem.
No, that's good.
Oh no, we do it at the end anyway. So,
Mhm.
Do you want me to read it, Keela?
yes, please. My glasses. I have to
Okay,
go
yeah,
get
no
them
problem.
upgraded.
In greater, carry on. Hello. In greater society, the state crown can override parental rights when children are going abused, or being abused. Why not with Church of Scientology? Can't the government take custody of the children based on basic standards of abuse? You'd think so.
It's just we're very early on in the knowledge of the kids being a problem. Think about it. This is breaking news, right? It's unfortunate, but it's never really been in anyone's concern or radar. Even that congressman that spoke about Scientology, what was he speaking about? Adults, cleaning toilets with a toothbrush, and yes, it's unthinkable that they're having that happen to them. But he's not seeing Scientology as a child trafficking problem.
Mhm.
So I think we're just very early on still about making this actually an issue, but it's exactly what you're saying. It's all governments have the right to intervene and must intervene once the facts are exposed and confronted.
Kathy Ann. Question, Serge, does Scientology use the fear of CPS and the foster system as a way to keep kids quiet, the ones who aren't, quote, good little soldiers?
Not really, because really, honestly, again, they will find something to do with you inside of the hotel. So, kids that were not good little soldiers were sent to be cleaners, were sent to be, dishwashers. So that's kind of like what their crisis management really is. So they would never send a kid to foster system, because then that opens them up for investigation. And they've been always like Scientology's crisis management 24/7. They're always looking at covering their ass. And that's why they haven't been discovered in 74 years too, because they've been good at it.
Yeah.
Stasia Flones, just look at the Catholic Church leadership. It took kids as adults to be whistleblowers to bring attention to the abuses they suffered. It's still being discussed today.
Yes.
And I, on that point too, Stasia, I don't know if people have watched the movie Spotlight. I think sometimes a movie being made, dramatic, like bringing another type of awareness, that's another way of bringing awareness to the general public about what's going on. So that might be something. Katie Fulton, hello. At Literally Serge, I'll forever back you on this. Bless you for speaking out on this. I'm so sorry for all your pain. Your fellow friend who found healing via dance. You're an amazing person.
I agree with
Thank
that.
you,
I love his
Katie.
dance too.
Kathy Ann, it's the same as children who live in abusive households. They believe it's absolutely normal until they see other kids' lives and realize it's not. Yeah, talking about how the isolation and not being exposed to other realities.
Absolutely.
Mental Health Matters. This is Hockey Town John, right?
John. Mm-hmm.
Just making sure. Your passion is inspiring, Serge. Bless you for spreading this important message. Hashtag kids cannot consent.
Yes. Thank you, John.
Melody Harcrow, everything you are doing matters. We all appreciate you and your sweetheart.
Thank you, Melody.
DJ Nico, hello. Comment. Once you remove any ifs, buts, and deflections, you hear Serge loud and clear. It can't be more plain and clear said.
I agree.
Thank you, DJ Nico.
Here he is again. DJ Nico, comment. When Leah asks where is Shelly, we can answer her, sorry, we don't have a dog in that fight. We care for the children and elderly languishing in the Church of Scientology prison of the mind.
Well, we want Shelly found and actually ask different questions. We do want to find where she is, because we do have a lot of questions for her in terms of what she knows about children being abused inside of the hotels. Because again, she was next to David for so many decades, and she couldn't have been more of an oversight person. So that's what's being called out. All of these executives ended up in having so much oversight over all of this unthinkable abuse. And it sucks to be them that they ended up there, but they need to now, start figuring out what in the hell.
Right.
Melody Harcrow, the mother in me wants to hug all the second and third gens.
I know that we
Thank you,
have
Melody.
someone in here. I was looking, John, I was looking, Katie Light, can you go to some of hers? Because she has a very important message for Serge in there.
Okay.
She's an ex-scientologist.
Katie Light, no child abuse and no elder abuse, please. At the minimum, stop this.
Yeah. I'm looking for the one that.
Katie Light,
There you go.
I will be forever grateful for you, for Serge. You saved my life. Oh, sorry, you saved my life, precious gem.
That's very important.
Wonderful, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
John, Serge, Mandy McGee wanted us to tell you that she thinks you're amazing, and we do too. That's right.
She's
Thank
with
you.
Laura
Shout
right
out to
now.
Mandy. Shout out to
She's usually
Mandy.
in here.
Yeah.
She's our mod, but she's with Laura
Blake
right now.
Reed, hello, Blake. So proud
Hey,
of you,
Blakey.
Serge, for always embracing mental health and screaming to the rooftops the truth.
Yes,
you,
amen
Blake.
to that.
That's right. Hagabasher, a time to take a deep dive instead of sitting on the back row observing.
There you go.
Call to
Just
action
one
right
more
there.
person. Call to action. One more person.
Mhm.
Twyla Luna, parents have a responsibility to protect their kids, period, full stop. Yep.
Yes.
Lori Driscoll,
Hi.
comment, it's so much worse than I realized. And I thought I was listening these past 2 years on YouTube. It's even worse. Yeah, I guess we learn more and more each time. And that's, yeah.
Through education and through spreading the word. Thank you, Serge, for that. Sophie.
Philosophy, hi. The problem is that people are conditioned to accept it as normal. They actually think it's helping. The cult is so damaging.
Yes, philosophy.
Sophie, yes.
Kathy Ann, I've always wondered how many of these poor children had their auditors physically or intimately abuse them behind those locked doors. How commonplace that is.
Unfortunately, Kathy, yeah, it's horrible.
And Casillas, hello. To any under the radar viewers, there are so many people wanting to help you get out. We will be here to help you once you walk away. There is hope. There is a free life. There is love and kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. And there is. Kate D. Light. If Sciento, am I reading this wrong? If Sciento were able to infiltrate the highest government, don't try to make me believe that the government can't do anything.
Exactly,
Right?
PDD. Well, I mean,
Right.
and that's actually such a great point, because when the FBI raided them, they saw the amount of incriminating information they keep on themselves. So for law enforcement to have done nothing for all this time, pretending that there's no problem, that's what the problem is, because the criminal evidence kept on themselves has been there since that last raid they did. They didn't stop. They didn't change. They didn't do nothing. They've continued operating the exact same way, because L. Ron Hubbard doesn't allow them to do anything else. So they cannot
can't
revise
change
it.
it.
They're still operating on policies from 1965. I mean, imagine the stupidity of that. I mean, they cannot even evolve is what the problem is, right? It's like, this is not even like, they cannot even change. They cannot even rein it back. There's nothing that no one has the power to change anything. And that's just so disgusting.
Yes.
Katie Fulton, at Literally Serge, I'll forever back you on this. We already read this one, I think.
Yeah.
I caught myself there. But
Katie,
hey,
sorry.
we enjoy that comment again, because that's
because I love Serge dancing. Yeah, absolutely.
That's therapy. That's therapy.
That is, yeah. I love dancing too. Philosophy. Many people will put up with abuse until they see it happening to their children.
And the thing that comes across my mind, like Sophie, we have conversations all the time off YouTube, and Sophie is so wise. But to those parents, they're not children. Here is where we've got to break that cycle.
Mhm.
Yep.
That they are children. So that's just my struggle with some of it.
Yeah.
By the way, I still can't rep. I mean, I know
I
that
know.
logically in my head to be true that this is how it's viewed, but I still just can't digest that. How that, I don't know. It's hard for
It
me
comes
It's hard.
it
yeah.
comes from building a whole world, like your whole entire world is built on a delusion, right? Because you're being fed, oh, you have a reactive bank, oh, you have this, oh, you have that. So it takes all of that to create that type of cognitive dissonance. It's not just that they get told our children are not children and they believe it in 1 second, but again,
Right.
going back to L. Ron Hubbard didn't allow you to repudiate anything he wrote. You had to accept it. If you didn't accept it, then you had to find your misunderstood word. So he always had you thinking that you're the stupid one, you're the one that doesn't know. And again, like going back to these parents, like these parents are horrible for putting their kids there, but you also go like the level of insanity that this man and the level of control he was able to garnish for himself with this rhetoric. I mean, the rhetoric is powerful and we've seen what it can do. And again, that's why it needs to be, fully exposed and sanctioned fully.
So, okay, wait. Before we do this, Sophia, I'm sorry about your dad. I want to say that my condolences about your dad passing away. I'm truly sorry, and I love you.
I didn't
Okay.
realize that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. It's yeah, that's hard.
I know, Gretchen. I know.
Yeah, this week is gonna be hard for me too. Yeah.
I know.
Sophia, abuse needs to be normalized for coercive systems to continue to exist. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right.
And then Sophie.
Yeah, treating children as adults is so abusive. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
DS Kitty Diana, just saying hello and thanks to Serge for joining today. I was a bit late and started at the beginning, but I wanted to send love. Welcome.
Hey, Diane. Thank you.
Kathy Ann, no matter what the robes look like or the costumes worn, abuse is abuse.
Mhm.
It is.
Good point. Carry on. Serge's voice is so important in the fight against oppression and Church of Scientology. I mean, cult of Scientology. Maybe I should,
Yeah.
change my language there. We said language matters, especially for the children. I have mad respect for Serge Del Mar.
Thank you,
I
Carrie
second
Ann.
that.
Kathy Ann, you can show Serge and Love at his channel, and there it is.
Yeah, they've been putting it through the chat the whole time. So
Great. Thank you, guys.
please support Serge's channel, please.
There you go. Scientology's Psychiatry and Industry of Death Museum. There
Boy,
you
I
go.
didn't know I was in the industry of death with as many people as I'm hoped I'm helping on a daily basis.
So that's interesting. I almost want to visit there to see what they.
Me too.
It's in LA, right? Isn't it in LA?
Mhm.
On Sunset.
Maybe I
On
should go
Sunset.
out there and visit. Yeah. Well,
I don't know that you're gonna get too far now that you're.
I won't get in.
I mean, can I go in? Come
Well,
on.
you could have without them knowing your face, but you really have to go without disguise. Just go get a wig on Hollywood Boulevard and enter with a wig.
Yeah.
Then you'll be okay.
Okay.
And then no phones out.
But the thing is it's a museum, right? I mean, isn't everyone welcome in it?
Well, everyone's
Oh,
welcome in every building.
I won't say a
And
word. I just
Scientology is
wanna
a church, and not everyone's welcomed either. They have to interrogate you before they let you in and make sure that you qualify. So they're very much about qualifying people before they're giving access to them.
I guess I can't
Yep.
go to the Orange County org then, like I wanted to.
No.
I think oh well. But yeah. Kathy Ann, where Shelley got so much coverage, now it should be what about the children?
Mhm.
There you go.
So I have an X account I use very much so for the last 19 years. So I get it out there every time I make a post, kids with all the hashtags. So just keep speaking, everyone, please.
Yes.
Lori Driscoll, Serge, your message has been as clear and consistent. Hashtag kids cannot consent.
Absolutely, Lori. Absolutely.
Carry on, Serge. You have done a brilliant job of succinctly distilling the injustice down to a very simple and universally accepted concept. Kids cannot consent. I'd agree with that.
I
Mhm.
agree with that. The noise is gone. Like all the fluff, all the crap is gone. It's just he's
right.
got it down to very much where I very much have a better understanding of it, even as long as I've watched Serge. But just being able to see, be here with him and talk to him, all that noise is gone. There's the message right there.
Kathy Ann, as Kate said, check out the IRS claim and forms here. Anyone can fill it out. Huh.
And I know that Fat Grammy, she has a lot of forms also on
Okay.
on her channel. Like, and I'm gonna try to get some of her forms to post onto our community page. She's got them on her community page. Just from, reporting. They mass report everyone to get their social medias taken down. Well, to try to stop the voice, our voices from being heard. But there's a lot of interesting on Fat Grammy's community page, interesting stuff that she has found. And that's a lot of resources. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of this stuff, like, it's nothing that, for instance, myself or Keela, it's not like we're going into some secret dark web special investigation PI stuff. It's searchable on Google, on the internet. You can just search it up and there it comes, because it's public record, as it should be.
I literally went to one site and had some pulled up, and then I emailed it to Gretchen, and she said, "Wait a minute, I got one even better." And she's looking, and I'm looking. It's that simple to find some of this stuff, and just to find. Oh God,
it just doesn't measure up. Yeah,
it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah, Melody Harcrow, everything you're doing matters. We all appreciate you and your sweetheart. We got that one. Well, thank you again for that. John, thank you for never giving up, Serge. So happy that Michael is doing better after that horrible night. Yep, we all are. That's great.
I was crying tears down my eyes. So I had tears all over me. Yeah. I can't fathom what y'all have been through. I just know that we have been thinking about you.
Thank you, guys.
John, do you want to come up on stage to say goodbye to Serge? Are you ready? Is that okay? Shake. Okay, he did. There you go.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's no echo today, John. I love that.
No echo today. We got it all ironed out.
Awesome.
We love his voice, Serge. We love it. We use
oh gosh.
Everybody's in love with his voice. They have to hear it in the chat. So, but I do want to say thank you to everyone in the chat, and I want to say thank you to the mods, and especially a big thank you to Serge for this. I do appreciate this so much. You've just, like I said, you cleared out all the noise. It's so much easier now.
And continuing to shed light on a very important topic that needs to be stopped. Period.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Yadira.
I love his voice,
Yes,
Serge. They can't help it.
Thanks so much, Serge, for coming on. This was an honor for all of us.
It was.
Yes, and please, about Michael, if you can just, however you want to get in touch with me, that would be an honor.
Wonderful.
Okay. Well, everybody, I'm glad that you all were here. I'm glad you've all heard. Please don't stop speaking. Keep doing what you're doing. And we're going to continue from here. And until the next time, we do not have a schedule coming up. It's going to be a pretty rough week on a couple of us. Gretchen and I have a hard week coming up. Some traumatic events that we've had in. I didn't know they were 4 days apart. So we'll be on, but it will be.
We'll do our best.
We will let you know. All right. Well, thank y'all, everybody, and we will see you next time.